For one, little t traumas and disease. The question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. Gabor Mate. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Jiddu Krishnamurti. Getting well in a sick culture is a task of no small measure. Our state of unwellness is reflected in the abundance of dysfunctional relationships that are deemed normal. Normal is far from well. If the sick are convinced they are healthy, then the healthy appear to be sick. Mental and emotional health has been crying out for attention and only recently began getting the love it needs. Priorities only shift when people hit their bottom. Well, the base of all but fell out of our rock bottom. Shedding light on how mental and emotional health tie into physical health is vital to understanding the roadblocks to being healthy and well. First, we have to gain awareness by acknowledging them. Make it no big deal to speak about such topics, removes the negative connotations of mental and emotional well being issues. This book provides real talk for real people who have real problems, like everyone else. The only requirement is honesty. Instead of pretending we're all fine and dandy and it's okay, even courageous, to admit we are far from dandy and stop pretending. Being born has only one implied promise: others will meet your needs, love, and care for you. For many, like myself, the families we were born into didn't exactly fulfill the promise. Our first newborn cries of frustration and disappointment were often met with some kind of betrayal, a separation, aka an attachment wound. Our caregivers responded with intense anger, hostile frustration, guilt ridden neglect, and sometimes blatant abandonment. That first betrayal or trauma caused a sequenced ripple effect, establishing and solidifying our personality and creating a specific relational orientation toward our caregivers and the rest of the world. Our attachment type, the way we relate to others, originated in these early stages of infant development. This initiation into the three-dimensional world created the first internal distress, our first neglect, our first abuse, our first dissonant confusion. These sensations were quickly followed by the first suppression of emotional discomfort resulting from the clashing of needs and preferences with our caregivers. The birth of trauma begins for us all at this juncture. Disconnection breaks our hearts and leaves a trail of wounds, only for the process of maturity to soothe them. Maturity is not inevitable, tragically, as we can plainly see in ourselves and others. However, little t traumas are unavoidable. Little t traumas for all. Big T and little t traumas set the trajectory of our life's experiences. Big T traumas are the sudden accidents and huge events that seems to fall upon us without warning or much preparation. The cruel, gruesome events can often make us question the meaning of our existence. PTSD is usually the effect of big T trauma events. Little t traumas are insidious, causing rifts in bonds and eroding our ability to trust. Attachment trauma begins at the very beginning of our adventure of this incarnation and continues to ingrain the programming of how we view the world and how we relate to it. Our conditioned beliefs cannot shift until we realize the patterns and instigate the desire to interrupt them. The way we were parented and its life itself create tiny micro tears and gaping holes in the fabric of effortless trust. And just like that, the world becomes skewed by our painful experiences. Only those who decide they can no longer continue with their pain can fathom the notion of stopping it. The maturity process continually initiates growth, completing old patterns and kicking off new ones. Utterly unrelated to one's age, maturity is alertness and awareness. It has everything to do with an honest assessment of evolving needs, desires, and actions. Mature people have hope that life can change for the better. The wise are self accountable. They are not victims of circumstance. The mature minded earn their growth by embracing the pain of life, transmuting it into the origin of their fulfillment. Simple but rarely easy, embodying acceptance is the way to wisdom and development. Conceptualizing acceptance is a phenomenon beyond words. Before we knew the language of words, emotion was our first innate language. After understanding, speaking, and learning words, the language of others often begins to override, ignore, and invalidate our emotions for the sake of control. We learn to please our caregivers, appeasing them to avoid feelings of anger, shame, guilt, and fear. To quell our discontent, we learn to be distracted by pacifiers, bottles, food, toys, screens, and other ploys to dismiss and avoid acknowledging our emotional responses to our experiences. This grooming for addictive escape was cultivated right there through the demands of our caregivers. Don't cry. Shut up. Stop being so sensitive. And my favorite, get over it. Shouted amid a temper tantrum, we are redirected to look at something else and feel happy instead of being given the space to feel and work out less than desirable feelings like anger, frustration, annoyance, grief, and confusion. The messages to deny our emotions are consistent in many people's upbringing. Maladaptive coping mechanisms, the most common are substance abuse, rumination, emotional numbing, and escape. Swoop in, giving us a way to adapt to the external denial of our emotional realities. Addictive personalities are formed in response to personal pains and traumas, both big and small. Best-selling author, renowned speaker, and addiction specialist Gabor Mate has this to say about the relationship between pain, trauma, and addictive patterns. Not all addictions are rooted in abuse or trauma, but I do believe they can all be traced to painful experiences. A hurt that is at the center of all addictive behaviors. It is present in the gambler, the internet addict, the compulsive shopper, and the workaholic. The wound may not be as deep and the ache not as excruciating, and it may even be entirely hidden, but it is there. Due to pain and trauma, driving into unhealthy substances and behaviors becomes a standard coping mechanism. It's instinctive protection formulated by resistance and negligence of our thoughts and feelings by our custodians. The need for approval and fear of abandonment is deeply embedded in our DNA and prevents us from disconnecting completely. Humans are social animals, and our survival is dependent upon others. As individuals, we cannot thrive in a vacuum no matter how hard we try. How dis-ease begins. This acting out, i.e., using maladaptive coping mechanisms to deal with others' resistance to our true feelings, spins the wheels of avoidance, distraction, and self-victimization. The ignored energy and emotion have to go someplace. Since it cannot be expressed to others, it gets expressed inside, wreaking havoc in our bodies, hearts, and minds. That internal strife becomes the current through which our energy flows. Thus, avoidance of the underlying emotions sets the stage for ongoing unhealthy relating and going to self-destructive addictions of many kinds. Avoiding pain and seeking pleasure are fundamental aspects of being human. Escape is simple and easy for so many until we learn that there's no avoiding the pain of being human. To be human is to suffer. Life presents unlimited discomforts. The challenge and beauty are to find meaning and to grow with the pain. Too many never find the way out of numbing out and self-neglect. The accountability factor is the magic ingredient to life, filled with joy, happiness, and freedom. The only way out is through. Maturation is getting beyond the dysfunctional coping mechanisms, moving forward with honest, healthy relating, and starting with our conversations with ourselves. The way of ease begins where you are. We have to acknowledge our active role in unhealthy patterning with brave insight. Getting well is a process of identifying and removing obstructing factors and replacing these blockages with health benefiting components. In Chinese medicine, the obstructions are referred to as insults. More about that in chapter 5. Wanting to overcome addictions and avoidant behaviors means confronting the emotional cycles of guilt, remorse, and disappointment. Unhealthy habits, addictions, and avoidances actually reinforce these difficult emotions. When we're sick of the feelings associated with being unhealthy, we can begin to envision the possibility of a better life. There is no restoration of wellness without a sliver of hope for a better way to live. Most people use their resentments of other people's actions and personal health issues to perpetuate unhappiness and dissatisfaction, not realizing that most health and relationships reside in their control. In fact, no one else has the power to dictate our health and the way we relate to others. The path to wellness, both personal and social, requires introspection, patience, and a gentle understanding of the circumstances at play. There are layers of dynamic responses and intended actions running under the surface. Everyone has their own angle to justify their own perception. So, considering other perspectives can bring understanding and acceptance. Accepting responsibility for our own actions is the mark of budding maturity. New actions replace old ones, and the desire to replace them is the root of ending addictions. But it's not as easy as substituting one thing for another. The root of addiction must be addressed, or another destructive addiction will replace the old one. The thoughts and feelings fueling the addiction need to be seen and understood to process them, so the maladaptive coping mechanism is obsolete. This introspection is delicate because it is easily clouded by projection. Projection is a blame game, a hall of mirrors that shifts the ownership away from our behavior and blames others for our actions. Staying focused on our feelings guides the process of looking within. Context is useful, so it can be good to label others to draw boundaries between us and them. The labels become a step along the way to healing. The language of healing relationships is akin to any other study. Codependency and narcissism are useful labels for context. Still, most folks are a bit of both. The codependent has narcissistic traits, and the narcissist has codependent traits until they are fully restored to wellness. I only have a few more words to speak of the language of unhealthy relating, i.e., the codependency narcissism spectrum. They are two sides of the same dirty coin. People who lean towards narcissism use empathy against others, while codependents use empathy against themselves. Both sorts of people are conflicted and relate manipulatively, however, subconsciously. Both fixate on one person, the narcissist, and dodge self-responsibility in blaming the other for their circumstances. Both have direct responsibility in their relational circumstances. Only codependents can validate their suffering with a wider lens of the unhealthy dynamic because they are often willing to admit fault. So they are the ones who typically venture for solutions. Narcissists cannot have a wider lens because they are committed to their correct perspective and unwilling to acknowledge solutions exist. The general relationship between narcissism and codependency is a tool for us, helping us to identify our responsibility in our unhealthy relating. I'm not speaking about clinical personality disorders here. Context is for clarity, allowing us to see where we stand in dynamics. Labels are purely egoic, and we are more than our egos. Because egos dictate our reactions, we need to see it for its intended purpose. The ego is not good or bad, it serves to protect us. Welcome, ego and higher consciousness. The ego is only something to be aware of, not something to overcome. It's vital to recognize the ego as a built-in protection mechanism and not try to condemn or erase it. The ego presents perceptual compulsions of specific behaviors in response to familiar circumstances. The ego functions to reference memories and gauge an appropriate and safe reaction. It's not conscious. Below consciousness, the ego lives in the subconscious mind. We dialogue between the ego and our higher self as the devil and angel who figuratively exist on our left and right shoulders. One serves instant gratification while the other serves the greater good and plays the long game. The chatter among these two characters is one of the most important conversations to tune into. Some liken our consciousness to God consciousness, and I agree. Still, it is not essential to believe that your higher consciousness, the aspect that knows what is truly best for your health and well-being, is a spiritual higher power influencing you. While the ego fears, the greater consciousness loves. There is a need for both in us. The ego gives us context and illuminates our records and old beliefs, witnesses our beliefs, and observes the patterns. Question the ego's priorities and compulsions to disrupt the old patterns, ending them in order to begin a new routine. Greater consciousness develops new solutions to repetitive problems where they can be left in the past, and we can move forward in a harmonious way. Your ego is not the enemy when it comes to the pursuit of wholeness. Ego is an individualistic necessity that differentiates people. Humans are made the same. We have the same bones, blood, and guts among our different traits. Cultural backgrounds dictate the diversity in our headspace, and the various realities radiate out from there. Finding our purpose lies in the conversation between ego and the greater consciousness for those fortunate and brave enough to start the dialogue. The curiosity of discovering one's life purpose leads to alignment, and there's nothing woo-woo about it. Alignment is self-actualization, and acceptance of all that was is its foundation. The business of misery. Much akin to the alignment of our spinal column, something is off when we're not aligned. We feel out of whack. We feel constant pain and discomfort. Aligning to our truest priorities and purpose gives life meaning, quality, and satisfaction. Sadly, more people are focused on surviving than thriving. Creating a life of purpose seems like a dream only the entitled can conceive. It turns out that those who dare delve into exploring their purpose seem to make the opportunities to do so. The pain is too great to remain the same, locked into a life that is unsatisfying. How many folks do you know going through the motions of being alive who seem to be a shell that's empty inside? How many people are on psych drugs now for depression and other mood disturbances? The statistics are alarming. According to the Centers for Disease Control, 13.2% of adults in the USA used antidepressants between 2015 and 2018. And that's more than 1 out of every 10 adults. Worse, the usage significantly increases with age. How many seemingly random and not so random suicides have taken your loved ones and friends? Suicide is the 4th leading cause of death for 15 to 19-year-olds, and there are over 700,000 suicides worldwide every year, according to the World Health Organization in 2021. Painkillers and mood inhibitors have been among the top 40 most widely prescribed pharmaceuticals year after year. In 2019, 9.7 million people misused prescription pain relievers in the US alone. The one thing those going through the motions have in common with an inner emptiness or deep pain that won't let up. There is a missing piece in their lives and they feel it. That is what I'm going to start this over. The one thing those going through the motions have in common is an inner emptiness or deep pain that won't let up. There's a missing piece in their lives and they feel it. That is what it is to be misaligned with their purpose, fueling an escape from the life they were given with all other things to substitute a sensation of wholeness and peace. Purpose, by the way, does not need to be some huge endeavor like a new business or a dramatic shift in one's circumstances. Finding our purpose can mean small adjustments to the way we relate to life and all that it is comprised of. Small shifts in how we communicate have big effects on our realities. Quick fixes like numbing out or short-term avoidances merely delay or amplify the problem. Pills attempt to fix symptoms while concealing emotional pain. Taking pills to fix the pain is like using duct tape to fix a broken car part. It might work for a while, but the part is still broken and eventually needs to be addressed before matters get worse or the car gets junked. The root cause still lingers no matter what medications are taken to alleviate the symptoms of the pain and discomfort. People who suffer from the effects of little and big traumas of unprocessed chronic mental, emotional, and physical pain experience a continual frustration with life as it is versus to how they feel it should be. The conflict of living in consistent denial of how they desire to live depletes the will to thrive. Eventually, they wear down and out. People wallow in disappointment, in complete disbelief that life can have less pain and anguish and more pleasure and relief. People have learned hopelessness based on the cultural norms of the mainstream narrative that suffering is endless and living with it is what it is. Too many are self-defeated. All hope for living a life of satisfaction and fulfillment is lost. All hope for living a life of satisfaction and fulfillment is lost. Based on a sense of deprivation and denial, planted in childhood and reinforced in cultural expectations, limiting beliefs are passed through the generations from our parents, their parents, and their parents. Believing alignment is possible. To truly create this idea of a good, satisfying life requires unlearning all the limitations we grew to become comfortable with. So, how does one unlearn the consistent narrative that keeps them stuck in dissatisfaction? By asking essential questions. Unlearning and reprogramming is a natural outgrowth. Some common questions to get started include the following. What are our beliefs about what life is supposed to be and look like? What do we care about? What topics excite us? What limiting beliefs were we taught as children? Over time, our lives are programmed by things we see in the environment. We learn what girls and boys do and how to get ahead in the office and how class-specific trades and educations box us in. Questioning these original observations and beliefs begins the process of unlearning. Being crazy enough to be interested in something despite it revolting others is courageous. When shut down from going a different way from the pack, we shied away from our goals, hopes, and desires for so many reasons, most related to the expected judgment of others. Ask the questions. It's a little like the toothpaste analogy. Once you ask, you can't unask the question, and the answer is out there. You've exposed it. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back. Instead, you clean up the sticky mess by finding answers to your existence. Once we connect to our passions, our life becomes a journey of adventure, anything but lifeless. The process of alignment is challenging. The world may seem largely disinterested, indifferent, or even offended by our individual path to health, wellness, and purposeful life. Significant obstacles to alignment exist that can feel surreal. It's a training ground, necessary steps along the way. Stumbling blocks are fuel for the fire. We are the fire, the wrought iron being strengthened by immense heat and hammering of life. The process of alignment goes exactly this way for good reason. It weeds out the ones who only want the easy way. Nothing worthwhile is without some effort. Many valid roadblocks seem to block us, and that stops many from moving forward while others find a way up over and through it. What is different between these two different groups of people? Some make themselves matter, others do not. It's their values and priorities. To each their own. One is not better than another. Other values are more important than the pursuit of their own alignment, which is okay for them. People who prioritize their desires feel they matter as much, if not more than their, if not, people who prioritize their desires feel that they matter as much, if not more, than other priorities in their worlds. That's why. When we know we matter and what we feel matters, our needs and wants can be met. So if anyone desires to, they can learn to matter more and make their feelings, needs, and wants matter too. Matters of mattering. If we don't give precedence to what matters, like people, passions, and priorities, they fall out of focus. And what doesn't really matter can seem to be more important. Matter is physical in the scientific sense, but also conceptual in a theoretical sense. I know this modern day trigger word, matter, has many meanings and is a touchy subject. The social associations of this word can hip chuck any well meaning person into the paradoxical and chaotic world of politics. Here it is, and its definition according to who else? Google. Matter, MADER, noun, physical substance in general, a distinct, as distinct from mind and spirit in physics, that which occupies space and possesses rest, mass, especially as distinct from energy. The structure and properties of matter, an affair or situation under consideration, a topic. A great deal of work was done on this matter. Verb, to be of importance, have significance. It doesn't matter what the guests wear, of a wound, secrete, or discharge pus. Ugh. Okay, that last verb reference was pretty gross, but let's see how powerful this simple word is. But see how powerful this simple word is? Even by definition, matter is highly contextual. It's significant physically and conceptually. What matters? Do you matter to you? Do your opinions and feelings matter to you? To every one of us, some things matter and others don't. Yet matter has literal and figurative weight. It has value. Matter takes priority. Things that matter guide our preferences and priorities. When matter is unimportant, it is not seen. It has no value or function. When things matter, when things and people don't matter, they are devalued and dehumanized. That's where humans get both serious and funny, and not in a good way funny. How we determine what matters has everything to do with our perspectives, values, and priorities. What matters is relational, vibrational, and unique to us. Maybe that's precisely what Einstein was referring to when he said, concerning matter, we have been wrong. What we have called matter is energy, whose vibration has been so lowered, has to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. If that is true, and I really trust Einstein when it comes to this topic, there is only energy behind matter, and that energy is intent. What lies behind our priorities are the intentions, whether we are aware of them or not. Our intent is revealed in what we say and do in response to what matters to us. From unstable to aligned, the pressure to accommodate and harmonize with our family, peers, and society is immense in childhood and adolescence. Being conditioned to go along with the status quo, we often repress our instincts when it goes against the grain of others, which blocks our intuitive expression. Others unknowingly can project what they believe we should be, do, and speak. So many of us are expected to be more emotionally mature than developmentally appropriate, usually around the time we start walking. The race to become independent and self sufficient doesn't let up until we have a breakdown or two. When breaking down, we learn how to fall apart so we can put ourselves back together with new parts and in new ways. With the breaking down, we break through into the following stages of growth. As challenging as they may be, there's no breakthrough when there's no breakdown. Without a breakdown, the status quo is maintained. Without honestly questioning, what is it all for? When we get desensitized to that nagging sensation that something amiss in our day to day rigid routines, using outdated coping mechanisms to keep chugging on. Breaking things apart is required to put them together in a new way. Growth is not for everyone. Some folks are meant to stay fixed as they are. I say more power to them. I honor their choice and understand everyone doesn't need to grow and mature. Each person is sovereign and chooses their path. Some people are designed to grow, while others are meant to uphold the status quo. We need both, and the decision is up to each individual. Eventually, the status quo shifts slowly over time. The best growth is incremental, as slow growth has the most staying power. The methods and approaches I suggest are based on an unrushed, gradual awareness away from disease and toward sustainably restoring health and well-being. Humans need the status quo, and stability is the practical and logical need. Tony Robbins has preached many times about his 6 human needs. 1, uncertainty, assurance you can avoid pain and pleasure. 2, uncertainty, variety, the need for the unknown, change, new stimuli. 3, significance, feeling unique, important, special, or needed. 4, connection, love, a strong feeling of closeness or union with someone or something. Growth and expansion of capacity, capability, or understanding. 6, contribution, a sense of service and focus on helping, giving to, and supporting others. Balance is the key to life, right? Humans need certainty, but we also need an element of variety, or we die of boredom and its related symptoms, simulating diversions of our boring lives. I set out to get used to change early on, and in hindsight, I've learned change and novelty can be hard on the body. Change takes some energy. It's an investment with a price tag equal to the risks and losses of old ways of being. Expanded awareness is worth every bold decision from my vantage point. Our backstory reveals how our needs and values came to be and helps us organize what we prefer in our future. Using our personal history as a tool for context brings on our next breakthrough. If you're lucky, you'll have more than a few throughout your lifetime. Stillness in action. List your inventory of coping mechanisms. What do you do to cope when something doesn't go your way? What activities make you feel more comfortable during tense situations? What do you waste time on when you should be doing something else? What is life supposed to look like to you? List an inventory of your values. What do you care about the most? What topics interest you? What would you want for this world if you could make it exactly as you wish? Action in stillness. Sit or walk and contemplate your values, hopes, and dreams for your life and their perceived obstacles. Identify the beliefs associated with each. Use your five senses of smell, taste, touch, see, hear, while observing your surroundings and take a few deep breaths. Notice what thoughts come up and identify the judgments associated with those thoughts. End of chapter 1.